Additional Chief Secretary of the Government of Madhya Pradesh in Science, Technology and Information Technology, Shri Sanjay Dubey, Dr. Ajay Chaudhary, founder of EPIC Foundation, founder of HCL, and currently the chair of the National Quantum Mission, many of my friends from industry, both on and off the stage. Let me first congratulate the government of Madhya Pradesh for having hosted such an energetic and such a vibrant investor summit here in Bhopal, in surroundings which are very interesting, in surroundings that bridge what needs to happen in this country, of taking the country forward while preserving some of its very essential character. We are in the middle of the Manav Sangrahalaya, the museum anthropological museum for traditional communities here in the country, and how we take them on this path of development without affecting them is probably one of the key elements that we take away from an event of this nature. And very interestingly, in the morning's inaugural session, both in the videos that were displayed and in the Honorable Prime Minister's speech, the one thing that you find is the emphasis on technology. 20 years ago, if you were at any of these events, most of the people you would meet would be investment bankers. Most of the people would be from the financial world. Life has changed completely. Today, it is the technology people who are the critical elements of what happens in any economy. Economy moves forward on the basis of technology. The Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology had a study conducted recently with the support of ICRIER, the Indian Council for International Economic Relations, where we wanted to assess what the size of the digital economy was. And what we found was very interesting. Till about 10 years ago, the size of the digital economy was barely 6 or 7% of India's GDP. Now it is currently at about 13%. It has doubled. And it is expected to grow to almost 20% by the turn of this decade, by about 2030. What you see in the digital economy, which comprises two broad parts, and it doesn't count the entire impact of digital technology on the economy. It doesn't count that. It's basically about those segments of the economy which are primarily digital. Whether you're talking about IT, IAS and other services, digital commerce and so on, or whether you're talking about electronics, semiconductors and so on. Fundamentally, those which are related to digital technology. It's expected to reach 20% of the total size of India's economy by 2030. It is growing twice as fast as the rest of the economy. So that is the significance of what the digital economy can really do for us and why it is becoming that much more significant. And as I pointed out, it doesn't even count the impact of digital technology on all other sectors. Today, if you speak about the textile sector, you speak about the mining sector, you talk about the medical sector, you talk about drug discovery, you talk about delivery of services in any of these sectors, all of it is being enhanced by the use of digital technology. It is contributing to the growth in productivity in each of these sectors in a very, very significant way. And which is why the emphasis on growing the digital technology sector in a country like India. And this is what? This is the one thing which offers a country like India the opportunity to leapfrog. This is the one opportunity we have to actually ride the digital technology wave in order to overtake and in order to ensure that we become truly a developed nation, a Viksit Bharat by 2047. If one thing gives you the opportunity, this is what gives you the opportunity. Many people, many experts, economists and others feel, for instance, that artificial intelligence and what the AI revolution can do in this century, in this decade, and in the coming decade is almost what the steam engine and the first industrial revolution did in the final decades of the 19th century. So that is the kind of impact that we could potentially see, and that is what we really need to harvest, and which is why I think the government of Madhya Pradesh giving so much importance to having the opening plenary of this of their global investors meet, focusing on Tech Invest, I think is an extremely timely measure, and the 5 policies that they have brought out clearly focus on the various elements of what the digital economy will entail and how we can harness technology. So there are multiple parts to this. One part to this clearly is what needs to happen in the ITES sector in terms of deepening the value chain, in terms of making sure that the value add that happens, the kind of jobs that get created in this sector are not the kind of jobs which got created 20 or 25 years ago. These are different jobs. These are high value added jobs. These are high knowledge intensive jobs. These are the kind of jobs which reach and which meet the aspirations of India's youth, of people who are better educated, have more to offer in a range of services. So clearly the GCCs, the Global Capability Centers, are not just hyped up BPO operations. They are actually engineering R&D centers. They are the kind of centers which can actually contribute to enhanced value across the world. And the other thing that you would see is possibly that a lot more of the talent which otherwise would have got exported by emigrating out of the country would actually be talent which gets retained in the country and is able to then, as a spillover, contribute to greater growth. That is the importance of the GCC sector in terms of the higher quality jobs that. The second important needs to be addressed the overall electronic terms of higher value chain. Today, the one thing that we need in electronics is that a global value chain. Manufactured and just manufactured across different countries. Typically, before it reaches you, has 70 times in terms of various components of it. Now, today's situation is that India has witnessed over the last 10 years considerable increase in overall electronics output. Overall electronics production in the country has grown considerably. It's no mean feat that 10 years ago, in 2014-15, about 75% of the mobile phones that each one of us were using were all imported. Today, more than 99% of the mobile phones are assembled in India, are made in India in a sense of being put together in India. It doesn't mean that all of them are manufactured from scratch in India. About the value addition which takes place in India is about 18 to 20%. Clearly that has to increase. But please also remember that 18 to 20% value addition takes place in a segment which is extremely labor intensive, which is employment intensive, and it produces a large number of jobs. And that again is extremely important for a country like India, for a state like Madhya Pradesh, or for any state. Alongside that, we need to deepen that value chain. We need to ensure that that value chain continues to stay in India, that industry continues to stay in India, because it has to deliver more jobs, it has to create more jobs. And we have to export these products in order for these jobs to be created. Dr. Chaudhary mentioned the Product Nation Committee report, task force report, of which he was a part. An important dimension of what we are attempting to do there is to actually increase value addition in India, ensure that more components and various other parts of the electronics are actually manufactured in India, to make sure that even if the labor economics dimension shift, even if it becomes cheaper in some other country to actually assemble these units, we have enough value addition to be done here to keep the industry anchored in the country. But that alone is not enough. As Mr. Chaudhary pointed out, I mean, this is an iPhone. Now, typically when you look at an iPhone, what you find is probably in the US market it's worth about, say, $1,000. Of that $1,000, the entire cost, the bill of materials of all the equipment that goes into it, all the cost of assembling, is probably about 25% or 30%, $250 or $300 out of the 1,000. The rest of the $700 accrues to the company that designs it, and which is why the design ecosystem is also so important in India, which is why you need to design products in India, make products of quality, make products of the kind where we can actually sell competitively across the world. So what we need to do, in addition to doing all of this, is to make sure that we have an environment which enables us to make these products in a competitive fashion. Dr. Chaudhary pointed out some of the aspects which are important there in terms of where government policy can help. There are more areas where government policy can help. In all of those spaces, it's important. We can bring down the costs of doing business. We can bring down the costs of regulation. Each of those areas will contribute to this, and we need to work hand in hand with industry to make sure that the investment takes place and we are able to produce in a way that is competitive across the globe. So that's another dimension. Equally, semiconductors. What the COVID pandemic taught us, and at that point I was still posted in the government of Tamil Nadu. Hyundai, the big car maker, had made a large number of cars. They were ready to be shipped. They couldn't ship them simply because they did not have the semiconductor chips which need to go into the various electronic components of the car. So everything else is ready. Everything else is ready, but you couldn't ship because the supply chain of semiconductors was disrupted. Today, in addition to having, and that is a key contribution India can make to the global economy itself, in terms of contributing to resilient supply chains globally, particularly in the semiconductor space. And that is the ambition that India has, and that is what the government is attempting to do in terms of making sure that we have a position in the semiconductor space. We are able to not just manufacture, but even design. Already India has probably one of the largest design manufacturing ecosystems in the world, design ecosystems in the world in the semiconductor space. Nearly 20% of the entire design human resources in the semiconductor space is based out of India. But we are designing for a number of countries globally. It's not a bad thing. They're good jobs. They're worthwhile jobs. They are GCCs. Let us remember that. But equally what it means is that we should see the spillover of that. We should see more of them becoming entrepreneurs, more of them joining Indian-owned companies, more of them designing the chips, designing semiconductors, which can then be manufactured in the fabs and packaged in the OSATs and ATMPs that will come up in India and make India a key player in the overall semiconductor ecosystem of the world and make sure that we are able to contribute to that. All of these are extremely important steps that need to be taken. All of these are vitally important for the way that India's economy will turn out over the coming 2 to 3 decades. And that is why these are long-term bets. These are bets that we are placing in a crucial area of the economy where all of us need to work together to get this going. So I'm very happy to be participating in this particular event where Shri Dubey has just showcased so beautifully what Madhya Pradesh offers. Of course, as Secretary in the Government of India, I see what multiple states offer. I visited events in Gujarat, I visited events in Karnataka and elsewhere, where each state lays out a red carpet. Now, the good thing for all of those amongst you who are investors is you benefit from this competition. So please remember that all of you, there are many states which are competing with you, many states which are competing to attract you, which are trying to give you better and better solutions for the kind of issues that they have. They constantly learn from each other and try to improve the range of offerings that can be produced. This is the way India becomes competitive to manufacture globally. And that is the positive contributions that these 5 policies that Madhya Pradesh has announced today will make for the country. And clearly, I want that, there are many areas where Madhya Pradesh can significantly contribute. They should learn from areas where they've succeeded. Today, the Prime Minister mentioned that earlier today. Madhya Pradesh is one of the highest ranked states in terms of agricultural productivity and what they produce across a range of commodities. This is a change which has happened over the last 2 to 3 decades. Learn from what has gone right in those sectors, replicate them in other sectors, because nothing succeeds like success. Sometimes it's good to address that, good to learn from what you have done well and trying to replicate from it. And so similar to that, I'm sure in these technology sectors also they will do well. As far as India is concerned, we are trying very hard as a matter of policy to push GCCs, to push electronic manufacturing, to push semiconductor design, all of these to tier 2 and tier 3 cities across India. This creates a huge impact. It creates a huge impact for investors also. It brings down costs hugely. You've seen both in terms of human resource costs, in terms of commute costs, in terms of a whole host of other factors. Relocating to smaller cities makes a huge difference for investors. That's how the ecosystem gets created. So in that, again, Madhya Pradesh would be a leading state to lead this shift into a smaller country, into smaller cities across the country, which are moving up the value chain very rapidly. And clearly they've demonstrated, in terms of leapfrogging, they've demonstrated what they can do with technology in terms of delivering government services significantly better and moving up the ratings there. I was very, very happy to learn this morning, and we suffer from this personally and otherwise, saying if you can actually register a document wherever you are in the world with authentication mechanisms, there's nothing which can be as comfortable as that. You don't have to sort of go through complicated rituals like powers of attorney. You don't have to sort of say that when can everybody turn up. You don't have to. It is so much more frictionless. And that is the kind of innovation that the state has made possible, and I compliment them for that. And clearly, you would not go wrong if you invested in Madhya Pradesh, and honestly, you would not go wrong if you invested anywhere in India for that matter. There are many locations which promise you this, and Madhya Pradesh really is in the heart of India. You can't cross from one side of India to the other side without crossing Madhya Pradesh, and clearly this is a place where you will definitely find your stop. Let me once again thank the government of Madhya Pradesh and Shri Dubey in particular for having, and of course my batchmate and good friend, Chief Secretary of Madhya Pradesh, Shri Anurag Jain, for having organized this wonderful event and for having invited me here. Thank you very much.